if you find yourself saying I am, try to say I feel like I can't, and then try to break that down more.
Welcome to the Sandbox with Justin Peters, connecting you to the ideas and tools to improve your life. Now let's go. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sandbox. Of course, my name is Justin Peters. I am your host, and this is my experimental podcast where I bring on interesting guests that can give you thoughts, feedback, advice on how to become a superstar in your life. And speaking of life right now, it's a little bit of a crazy time. If you're listening to this in real time, hopefully everybody is staying safe out there. And for those not listening in real time, you guys remember that whole Corona crisis that we had? So it's kind of crazy right now, and it's really fascinating. We're pretty much on 100% lockdown. Everybody is hunkering down in their homes. And it's really sad. Like I said, I hope everybody's safe out there. I feel for anyone who has been laid off during this time. But a silver lining to it all is I feel like everybody I talk to has a ton of more time to invest into different things that they may have been putting off. So this is a great time, I think, to connect with your spouse or pick up that project that you've always wanted to work on. Or, even get your health back in order if you have, of course, if you have an at-home gym, but there's plenty of exercises and things you can do as well and not even needing any gym equipment. But today's guest is someone that I don't think really needed that extra time. I brought him on board because I really admire the fact that he is a rock star in so many different facets of his life. Not only is he crushing his career, he has a really solid relationship. He's hyper involved in different extracurricular activities, from sports to nonprofit work to being involved with his school. And he's also going back and getting his MBA right now. So he is one of my good friends, really a role model that I looked up to. He will deny everything that I'm saying right here and say that he's really not a superstar in all those facets, but don't let him lie to you. He really is amazing. So I hope you guys enjoy my conversation with Kevin McWilliams. Kevin, what's up, man? Welcome to Sandbox.
What's up, man? How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So I've been really looking forward to this conversation. In my intro, I mentioned I really admire you. You and I connected. Actually, we both went to Webster University, but didn't know each other when we went to school. You're a few years older than I am, but we connected into a group called Alumni in the Community, which you actually co-founded, which is essentially a young alumni group for Webster University. And I'm really privileged to meet you and some of your other friends, Eric and Wakil. I feel like all three of you have become like my big brothers and my mentors and my role models. And then
you need better mentors, but other than that,
no, I think you guys are great. But it's cool because I've seen you in terms of you and your friends and with the work with the young alumni group in recreational sports. I've seen how you've dealt with Amber, your wife. And it's amazing that you can juggle so many of these balls on the air, and like I said, really be really be a rock star in each one of these areas of your life. So I think the easy question for me to start with would be, how do you maintain that balance? But I want to dive a little bit deeper on that. I want to know, as you've gotten older, how do you evaluate what's important of you, where you should be spending your time? And then when you do have to say no to something, how do you say no?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from the current state, which was getting out of college, wanting to do as much as I could, learn as much as I could, experience as much as I could, and creating great relationships with people like you and whoever else. I just always loved saying yes, and I think as time goes on and as priorities get set in stone a little bit with having a family and like taking care of 3 crazy dogs and doing other things in your career, I think it's been enlightening for me to think about, instead of like being so wide across all these different things and like learning as much as I can and doing as much as I can. It's like, what really matters now that I've like tasted and done so many different things? What are the things that matter the most? And it's like doubling down on family, it's tripling down on health. It's like trying to figure out that balance. And I don't have it yet. And it's something that we've been working on, my wife and I, on, for the last couple of years, and we're still not there yet, but trying to do a little bit of self-auditing on like, what are the things that you're doing? Like, what are your goals? Like, what are you interested in? Like, what do you say matters to you? And then like a little bit of like, what are you doing with your time?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you like ease that back to like what your priorities are and where your goals are? Because I think, we get so bogged down by being productive and like doing things, but like, what are the outcomes that you're trying to drive towards? And I think we've been trying to be honest with ourselves on like, man, it's like, for me, like a lot of life is like taking a step back and like looking 20 years down the road. It's like, stop looking at like lifting and like look at health and wellness. Like, how's that going to work for me for the next 30 years? And like, I don't have to do this big workout. Like, I just need to be consistent, like with my eating and drinking water. And so I don't know really if that answered your question at all, but like, that's kind of how I've been thinking about like priorities. And it's like, we have a finite amount of time. One thing that like Amber and I are both yes people. And so like we found like we're running around and not spending time with each other, like not creating space for each other, and like putting ourselves first as like the first thing, and then putting things around us. So that's the biggest thing that we're still working on, is like, do we have date night? Like, and I think it's so hard because Amber is my like operational partner, like running a house, having dogs, all that kind of stuff, paying the bills. And she's also like the love of my life. So like, where do you create space for both of those things? Because I think a lot of times we conflate those two things too much, and it's like we don't have the space to be like romantic and just to appreciate each other.
So how have you divided those two titles on that front, in terms of like, hey, she is like a sense like my business partner, my life partner. She's helping me do all the things that have to happen, but she also is who I love. So how do you shift states and make sure that the romance is still flourishing in your life?
Still a work in progress, and I think it always will be. I think like we try to communicate as much as possible, like as candidly as possible, but it's being really intentional with the time. It's like, are we doing a date night with our phones down? Is this the time that we have together? What are our expectations for that? And then, okay, we're going to look at finances, every other week. We're going to like look at the to-do list. We're going to like, what matters to us? Where's our money going? Stuff like that. So it's like, it's not trying to like be on a date and be like, oh, by the way, we need to do this thing. It's like, hey, this is date night. Like, we have a time set aside for that, and really trying to set enough time, like guarding that time for both of those things. Instead of being like, oh, well, so-and-so wants to go do this. We can move that. It's just us, but it's like, that's sacred. It's not there yet, but it's got to be sacred time for us.
So is there specific language that the two of you use whenever one of you or the other person, like maybe I don't want to use the word present, but I'll use the word present whenever the other person isn't necessarily present, or somewhat absent in the relationship? Is there friendly language that you guys can use to be like, hey, I need your time, your attention, not I don't need to do operation right now, but I just need the two of us?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of like setting the expectations ahead of time, so that when you do have that conversation in the middle, it's less defensive. It's the conversation is, hey, we said we wouldn't use phones during this time. Like, I would appreciate it if you didn't do that, as opposed to like, hey, get off your phone, or like, you know what I mean? Like, it just feels like if you don't set that expectation ahead of time, the conversation's harder to have in the moment, or it can be done in a way that I think we would try to do over.
Yeah.
For sure.
So what is there specific, you said the word priorities. Is there specific priorities that you're working on in 2020 right now, and that you could share?
We usually do like a yearly goal setting kind of workshop. And
so tell me more about that. What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, honestly,
So you and
it looks
Amber do it together.
Amber and I sit down and we have mimosas somewhere. So
Yes.
so so we can like speak freely, and we just talk through like what are the things that we think are both important for us and as individuals, like because I want to be able to support her. She's so good about supporting others, and so she's been just the greatest support of my life. But I want to know more. She's so concerned about others. I want to draw out of her what is important to her and where does she want to go, so that I can help support her proactively, as opposed to like one day her being like, well, I'm helping you all the time, but like, what are you doing for me? So we sit down and like we try to like talk through all that stuff, and then we revisit that list later. We try to define it as best as possible. Like, what are the high level goals? What does that look like? And then what are some action items we can take on that stuff? And then we revisit that later, and we try to put it into like more of an action plan and kind of piece out where all that stuff lives. Yeah.
So me maybe 3 years ago would have heard that and been like, wow, that sounds super boring.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
looking forward to adult life. But it's interesting how I've changed my frame of reference over the last few years in terms of like now health and wellness is more important to me. Having a really stable relationship, and not only stable, but like making her my number one is also important to me. And some of the other stuff falls by the wayside, the partying and even some of the hobbies that didn't really bring me joy.
yeah,
What do
totally.
what do you think? And it seems like most people naturally go through this progression. What is it? What are your thoughts on like why you think people go through this?
I think that sometimes for me, I'll speak for me.
Sure.
I think I have what I've realized is that it's so important to be intentional about everything I do. It's like
Mhm.
what I want to accomplish at work for like the week. Like I don't just go to work and start answering emails. Like I know what I want to accomplish outside of the emails, outside of like people messaging me. You know what I mean? The same way with health, the same way with like with love. And I think that for me, I was just so unintentional. I was kind of like letting life happen to me as opposed to like making it happen for what I want out of it, not thinking through some of that why. And I think like Amber has created a lot of that purpose for me, and been like, oh man, like, you know, these are the things that matter. Like it just like for me, like creates a lot of clarity that
Mm.
like, and like we've become really close with like her sister and her sister's husband and brother and things like that. And like having that core and like really honestly, like trying to like reconnect with my mom, like in
Yeah.
a more intentional way. I think that it's like, man, like I had a lot of fun. I did a lot of stuff, but like, like the people that are going to be there when I'm like 60 or 80, like, what does that look like? You know what I
Mm.
mean? And it all matters to start doing right now because it's going to pay the most dividends. And it sucks because like I'm such like a believer and a lover of people that it's hard to like see like not continue to like water certain relationships and things like that.
Mhm.
Because I love learning people's stories and what makes them tick and all those types of things. But it's just important because those things are going to come and go. There's just some things that come in cycles. And I think once you go through some of those cycles and then you've like, hey, this is the person for me, I think it starts to like really provide some clarity.
Mm. So I'm interested to know how you maybe even leave behind some relationships that are no more like no
Sure.
longer, providing joy into your life.
I think that I think it's kind of like the auditing thing. It's like there are people that you will be there for people, and I think you'll learn that you may be there because you like to help them, and like, but you may not be getting things in return. So it's like I really love this person, but I feel like there's always drama and there's always conflict, and like there's this. It doesn't feel like they're supporting you,
Mm.
and I know that's like kind of harsh,
Sure.
but it's like with the finite amount of time in your life, who are the people that are bringing you the most joy, and who are you bringing joy to, and trying to say, you know, these are kind of my people, and
Yeah.
that'll change as time comes. But like, I think Amber and I have identified the people that like the couples and individuals that we think have really that make us better people, that like set the bar higher for us, that just bring us love and joy. It's really case by case, and some of them, like, I think if someone's listening to this right now, they can think about the people that they're like that jump out in their mind that they don't know how to have that conversation. I think some of it's like having the conversation. It's like, hey, not like, hey, I'm moving on from you, but like, what are the things that are going on in your relationship that you would like to change? Instead of like ghosting people, it's like, hey man, like, if I'm like mad at you, it's just like, hey man, like, I notice like in our relationship sometimes like I'm like there for you and things like that, and like I want to like, reframe our friendship in a way that like is, I don't know, it's being honest and asking for things that you need back in the relationship, instead of just like cutting people.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? If you're not honest, I think the easy way is to just like stop like slowly returning people's texts and not being able to join certain events and things like that. But I think if you're really honest with them, I think those relationships can turn around. You know what I mean? But I think realistically, you only have enough time and space for so many people.
Yeah, it's so much harder to have that tough conversation. The easy route out is just to ignore them. But you're right. It's having that conversation with the buddy you always partied with, and it's like, hey man, like I really love you, and like you mean a lot to me. But the only time you hit me up to hang out is to go out, and I've just decided that excessive drinking isn't a priority in my life anymore. But I'd love to try to find a way for us to hang out outside of that setting. And usually a lot of people I feel like respond well to that. Like, oh, you're right. I've been working on the same thing. Like and I see you've been working out a lot. You mind if I just like join you while you work out sometimes, and you transform a relationship?
Yeah. It's like, hey man, like, I'm sorry for saying no to some of these things. Can we like spend some time one-on-one instead of just like as a group, going for a hike, getting some coffee. And if like that like is not where they're not going to want to hang out with you a little bit too. You know what I mean? It's like being authentic with them and like kind of showing them, communicating like how you're changing and where you're going, so that they can also figure out if that's where they want to go too. But I think it's like, we kind of like, okay, I'm gonna like, this is my drinking buddy, so I'm gonna like go out there and like make it happen for him, even though it's like I'd rather be kind of sitting at home and like, I don't know, whatever, watching Netflix and going to bed early.
Fair. So speaking of priorities, you also decided to go back to school and get your MBA at Webster University, where you got your undergrad, correct?
Yeah.
So what led to that decision? Why did you decide to go back and go to school?
I think for a long time I kind of badmouthed the MBA program for a long time. Not Webster's in particular, but just in general. And I think for me, for me personally, what I didn't want to do is like go directly into grad school after college. I wanted to wait for it to be like it just became really applicable for what I was doing and where I was wanting to learn and grow. And I felt like I could improve my career by learning the things that an MBA offered. So I think it's really tough to like be married and take night classes and do homework when, we're always already really busy. But I think I personally put growth and learning above a lot right now in my life. And I've made certain choices to double and triple down on that. Like that is a priority for me, for a lot of reasons. But like for me, like I was a late bloomer, and so I feel like I'm trying to catch up so fast. Like I feel like I spent so much time like not doing the things that I should have been doing, or like feeling like I could. And now I'm in my life where I feel empowered to go do that. So I have to go do things like this. Like I'm capable of it, and I spent a lot of time not doing that. So
yeah. So what do you mean by late bloomer? Like what gives you that frame of reference?
Yeah. So back in like middle school and high school, I was pretty apathetic. I had really terrible grades, and it's funny, like when you meet people and like you like like my mentors, it's always hard to like hear that they were like not the hero that I've always seen them as.
Mm.
And like for me, like I've come a long way. You might be like, oh, Kevin's fine, but like, like I've come a long way. Like,
Yeah.
I got into Webster on academic probation.
Mm.
I had like a 2.4, 2.5 in high school. Like I wasn't truly sure I was going to graduate. I had like really smart friends that were like that like sports like me and were athletic but like like honor roll student kids, and I just thought they were just smarter than me, like just straight smart. And like I didn't realize that, like, this sounds ridiculous. Like I legit didn't realize that if you just put the time and the effort in, like those were the people getting grades. I thought it was just easy for them.
Mm.
Like no, they were just structured and put in the time and then knew they could do it. I just didn't think I was very smart at all. And it took like a lot of leadership opportunities for me in college to find that self-efficacy, to be like, oh shit, like I can do whatever I wanted to do. Not like whatever I wanted to do, but like I'm capable of growing and learning, and like I'm not like set for a certain lifestyle. I'm not set for, there's not a ceiling on me. So that was like such a big aha moment. So I read 20 books in a year because I was
Wow.
like, I spent all this time not reading, and there's all these books that like this is what smart people do. They read. So like I'm
Yeah.
gonna read all the books I can.
So, but your story sounds like someone who had a fixed mindset that
Yeah.
changed things around and really became a growth mindset. Is that fair to say?
And I think like we all have a fixed mindset in certain things that we still have to overcome. Like more than not, I now believe that like I can put myself in a situation and fail and grow and learn, and I'll eventually like there's gonna be a tipping point and I'll have confidence in that thing. Like I picked up soccer in like college and I
Mm.
played it for like 10 years. And
Wow.
then like now I'm like a really average player, which is really
You're a pretty
exciting.
good player. Yeah.
Very average, very average. And I think like there was times that I didn't know what to do with the ball. Like I have no foot skills. Like I've not been someone who played sports with my feet. But I like stuck in there. I really enjoyed it, and I just kind of like not being able to like practice as kids do when they're like learning a sport. I just had games, and then I stuck with it because I now really love soccer. So, it's things like that. It's things like grammar. It's things like, for me, we all have these like things that we've spent more time on because we were good at it at an early age, and there's things that we are like a little insecure about. And for me, I feel like I have the confidence and the self-efficacy to like fill those gaps a little bit, and also try to understand like where I thrive and what I really like.
Mm. So what are your thoughts generally on, because I hear conflicting thoughts on this a lot. A lot of people say ignore your weaknesses and build on your strengths, while some say understand your weaknesses and figure out ways to grow those weaknesses. Where is that balance? Because we all have a finite amount of time. Where's that balance in your head of what I'm good at, and how I can use that versus what I'm bad at, and where do I need to spend time to improve?
I think it just depends on like, I'm not going to like go learn guitar because because I'm not good at it. I think like my inability for like grammar or reading is something that like is like where I want to go, and something that I think that in the long run will help me. So it's like, I just think it's like trying to self audit like where you want to go and what you want to do and the things that will be helpful to you, and just knowing that like you can overcome any shortcomings, or like, and honestly, like if there's like something that's like really crippling, like something like you're really insecure about, I think it's important to face some of those things so it doesn't put you in that disadvantage. So there's no like, unfortunately, I think it's like really personal for
Mm.
people. Like I think there's some people that the things that they're really talented in and their passion, like, is their jam, and there's like they don't need to spend time on random things because they're not good at it.
Yeah.
For me, it's important to like, for me, balance is really important, and like I think I just like to learn new things, and so I do take on a little more like adjacent things than most people do. But yeah.
So, getting back to the fixed versus growth mindset, if someone's identified that they might have a bit of a fixed mindset and they want to progress towards a growth mindset. And I know it's not a binary. You have a fixed mindset or you have a growth
Yeah.
mindset. And you mentioned there's areas that you might, and there's areas that you might have growth mindset in. But do you have a general structure or some kind of more succinct step-by-step process if someone's identified they have a fixed mindset and they want to progress towards a growth mindset?
I
What would
think
be the
it's,
steps?
man, that's so hard. I think the awareness is huge. Is like understanding that like I think I'm dumb. I think I'm whatever. Like I am statements.
Mm,
I think it's hard because like they're just people that for me, I didn't know until I found success in something,
mm,
and then I was like, oh man, like what a game changer. Like there were people that believed in me before I believed in me, and then that like caught fire.
mm,
So I think there's a lot of really great content out there that's kind of making people more aware of it. I would encourage those who have super growth mindsets to like help push those who don't, and to like um, help them find success in like little really small incremental ways, to help them catch that fire. Like I'm so passionate about like wanting to help people find that in themselves because it was such a game changer for me, and I'm so grateful for the people that invested time and energy to like help me find it within myself, because like I didn't know if I was going to college. I didn't
yeah.
know what I was going to do with if I was going to like have a career or like a job. And I know it's like there's a difference there, and like
Mm,
the people that spent the time to do that, I'm forever grateful for. You know
mm,
what I mean? So if you find yourself aware of those things, I would say put yourself around people that are really good at those things. You
mm.
know, like be a sponge. Like I asked the stupid questions I didn't want to ask to those people. Like, like what does this mean? And like, um, how how do I get started? Like, are there resources? I would just like I think there are people that are willing to ask those questions, and maybe sometimes you'll get like, you don't know what that is. But I
Mm.
mean, truthfully, like I started an internship in finance, and it was like, I don't know what half the shit is, man. Like I was not like really well versed in finance, and so I'm asking these really stupid questions, and sometimes getting looks, and sometimes someone's like, yeah, let me take you through this. Like, let me show you some resources. So I would just say like, look for people you look up to in those ways, and try to like be vulnerable and
Mm.
ask those questions.
Yeah. And it's I love the thoughts on the I am statements, and I love the general thought of like going to tackle something or learning something from scratch, because what I found, the demarcation point for me, and this is really the foundation for my podcast, is to help snowball people in the right direction. Like it's to get
Yeah.
someone to take a little step, like someone hears the I am state, like the advice that you gave on the I am statements, and then they start recording every time they say an I am statement, and they try to reframe that or move away from that or prove themselves wrong in that sense. There's so many of us that have really not learned something from scratch since maybe we
Yeah.
were really young. Like
Yeah.
when's the last time you picked up a new sport or a new hobby, or went and learned a new topic from 100% from the ground up? And like we do that all the time from 0 to 13, and then we get in our space. We start worrying about public perception,
Yeah.
and
We have
it's
expectations on us. We
yeah.
have. Let me just say this. So if you find yourself saying I am, try to say I feel like
Mm,
I can't, and then try to break that down more and say I feel like this is in my way, or I don't have the like try to like really unpack why you feel like you can't do something,
mm,
because we stop at saying I am or I can't. But the truth is, like the people that are good at stuff just put in the time, and like that
mm,
was such like a game changer for me. I was like I as a competitive person growing up, I would love if you were bigger than me or stronger than me or faster than me. Like I was so down to like try to
yes.
like beat someone 5 years older than me. Like so like oh if it's just time and energy, like that's free, man. Like that
Yes.
don't cost shit, man. That's just what you want to put into it, man.
Mm,
So like I think about the dude like at the gym who's just big. And I'm like, fuck man, like I can't be as big as that guy. But I'm not like, oh, this dude's worked out for like 15 years. Like we don't put that together. We're just like, oh, they're just awesome, and they're just like, oh, like they've always been this person. Like when I said like my high school friends were just smarter than me, it's because they also like just fucking tried. Like they
Yeah.
just went after it,
Yeah.
and I didn't. And over time, it showed. Like they were in honors classes. They had great GPAs. So if there's anything that like matters to you or valuable to you, like just put in the time. Like it's just an effort game.
Mm. Yeah.
And if you're not that interested in it, like maybe it's just not a passion of yours. Like
Yeah.
look
Which is
for
fair.
things that you want to do.
Yeah. So you mentioned sports a few times already. So outside of the competition, what is it that really draws you to sports, both as a viewer and as a player?
Well, first of all, it's just a big waste of time, and I wish I was really into like physics or things that like really good people and smart people do. I think like what I love about sports is, well, one, it was like I was not like an incredible athlete, but I would say I was like above average, and I
Mhm.
just love. It was like my escape. It was like what I did and what I could do, and I just loved the challenge. Um, and then it was like watching with your family, with your dad, and you like understanding like the story of like the dude who's like 17 and then you know goes to college, and like being able to follow some of that stuff and then see him in the league is really cool for me. I love the way that like rosters are constructed, like why they choose. Like I love to put on the GM hat and just understand like where people are putting money, how rosters are constructed, why they're adding certain pieces, like the best of the best, and seeing like how they're putting these tremendous teams together. It's like Popovich using these people who are no names, or like Bill Belichick, who I always like. I don't know. I've always loved like looking at business analogies and sports analogies in life, because it's my way of like structuring the world, because I spent too much time on it. And so like for other people it might be something else, but like for me, I can create analogies off relationships in sports all day. Like
Yeah.
like Bill Belichick to me was like Steve Jobs. It's like no one can recreate that, like what he
Mm.
does. And like Andy Reid has built all these coaches. He's like Google. Like you see lots of people come out of Google. You don't see like a ton of former like Apple people running companies the same way that we've seen Google for a long time. So I don't know. For me, like I just have always, it's part of like loving the team dynamic, like the love of people, and like watching that story through a sports lens has been really cool for me. I don't know why I feel compelled to like watch so many different leagues and waste so much time and drive my wife insane. Because like at any given time, I'm watching an important game, because like there's like a championship of some sort happening at all times.
Except right now, which is, are you going
Oh
crazy right now?
man, I've never cleaned more shit in my life. I've never done more laundry. Like it is like sports has been my outlet my entire life.
Mm.
Like things were bad at home growing up, I would go play basketball. And I've always needed to like, I think my wife knows, like I play sports a couple of nights a week minimum.
Hmm.
To like let that energy out and to like compete.
So,
Yeah,
so
stuff like that.
you have a pretty deep bench then, I'm assuming, using sports metaphors here in terms of a network, just of all these things that you have been involved with. Has there been any particular moments that you can remember where this extensive network or friend group has helped you move forward in an area that you were looking for help in?
The network of people who helped me kind of like find myself was amazing. When I lost my dad, that was, having the love and outreach. And I think that he taught me that about you have a friend for you. You've got a friend until you prove otherwise.
Mm.
Like he truly loved every person walking up, like every stranger. It was weird. Like he would like just make little comments to people, say hi to people, and he did it in a far greater capacity than I am right now. And it was just really awesome to see. But losing him and seeing the love and support come through, and people doing everything they could, and all the kind words and from all over the place, people that I hadn't talked to in a long time, and people that I was really close with then. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm really sorry to hear about your dad. Were you always really close with your dad? What was your relationship with your dad growing up?
Yeah, I had a really interesting relationship with my dad. He was, I would say, a functioning alcoholic, and within the fixed mindset that I had, my dad was my superhero growing up, and he meant everything to me.
Mm.
And I think when I learned that he had a drinking problem and he wasn't as perfect as I kind of thought he was or had built that narrative to be, it really crushed me. And I kind of didn't understand like what that meant for my life. And so when I wasn't doing well in school and when I wasn't going where I wanted to go in life, I blamed him for that. And I had a tough relationship with him because we really weren't very communicative about the problem. It was kind of under the rug. But I mean, he's such a great guy and a great man. And I think it taught me so much about the duality of people and that we can't view people in this binary way. We all have problems. We all have struggles. He had a disease, and towards the end of my time in high school, I started to learn to love and empathize with that as opposed to like blame him for things. I had a really close friend I used to run with, still have a close friend, family friend, who one day, we used to run, and it really easy for me to get like sympathy on those types of things. And I was like this victim, and he's like, "What are you going to do about it?"
Wow.
And it was the first time I was like, "What?" No, like that's not how this works. Like, he's like, "How are you going to live your life?" And it was the first time that I'd really like put that together. And so I went through this whole, trying to love him for him and where he's at, and had some really tough conversations early in college and late in high school. And I'm so grateful for that choice because we had so many more years of like true love, and it wasn't me. I spent a lot of time resenting him, which I regret. I guess not regret, but I just wish I had learned that lesson sooner.
Sure.
But I'm grateful for all the time that we had that was filled with love and understanding. And, I think we all have relationships where we've been burned or hurt or, family members that we don't get along with. And losing him a little bit sooner than people lose their dads has like taught me so much about like how fragile some of this stuff is, how important it is to like have really great deep relationships and have really tough conversations with people. Because there was no harder conversation than some of those conversations of, your alcoholism affects me in this way, and understanding that he wasn't going to stop and being okay with that and knowing that he was my dad, so. Great guy, a lot of lessons in there. And I'm very fortunate that we were at the place we were at when we lost him.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. How did you balance the fact of like having such a prosperous relationship with him, but also not necessarily wanting to support some of those negative actions?
I think that you have to meet people where they're at, and because you have an idea of how they should live their life doesn't mean they're ready to do that. And then, so he's lived his life for, he was 72. And so he's a little bit old. I'm, 31, he was 72. And so he was a little bit of an older dad, but I think he's had a whole lifetime of experiences and beliefs and thoughts. And, it's hard to like, be like, hey, I just recognize this. You need to change when they're not ready to. And when they're dealing with an illness like that, I think you can control what you can control. And the best thing to do is love and have empathy and know that like he doesn't want to be in that situation. Like no one wakes up and they don't want to be a bad person and they don't want to they don't want to do wrong and they don't want to hurt people. Like no one does. And that stuff is learned, and that stuff is, that stuff happens along the way, and it's not for anyone to fix, but to support and to love and to have empathy. I think for me is how I was able to frame that for myself.
Yeah, that's great wisdom. I don't think many people in your situation would approach it that way, but once again, that's partially probably a hat tip to all the work you did, moving from a fixed mindset into a growth mindset. And your running partner, like, that was such an impactful question for you to sit back and really take some ownership in, because it's, you're right, there is a space in between a stimulus and response, and there's nothing you can do, or you can't change what he is doing, but you can change how you're responding to it. So
how it affects my life,
Yeah.
And I was stuck in this place of like anger and hurt and like questioning things, and was so mad that I felt like I couldn't. I think that's the biggest thing. And I wrote this essay in high school, and it said, like, the thing that hurt me the most is that I think when I realized that I couldn't help. I think the biggest thing is that I couldn't help him. I couldn't fix him. And I think that's where my anger came out of. And that's where like a lot of negative feelings came out of, was like some of me hurting because he hurt, is because this guy who had done so many amazing things in his entire life and wasn't able to overcome this. And I wasn't going to be able to like aid that in any way.
Yeah. As we're kind of closing up on our conversation here, it would be, I'd be reluctant not to ask you about your career. And first, can you talk about your career trajectory, where you were and where you are now?
Yeah. So, I got lucky enough to have an internship at Scottrade, and when that was the thing, it's a fintech firm that is now closed, and working through that, I kind of fell into this product development, product management space. I got a marketing degree, and I had an internship in their digital product development area, and fell in love with it. For me, it did a lot of the things that sports did, which is like working with people. And if you care and show that you're there for people, and you get to like kind of run with a team and help solve problems, and which is really cool. It's totally by accident. And through that, I met just some incredible mentors, from life to relationship, so much. In the early days, especially, I learned and listened to so much about their relationships and things like that I still carry with me today. I was there for a long time until they announced that they were being acquired. Did some product management at Agile Systems. I had a couple of different offers by the time I went to there, and learned how to execute on things, and met a lot of great people there, and have in the last within the year, I'm now at Slalom, which I really love, and doing some IT consulting there. So I think a lot of it is trying to like show value and learn as much as possible, because the cumulative effect of that, of just asking questions and putting in the work and staying consistent, goes a long way. But there's just so many people out there that I think you can learn a lot from if you're willing to listen and ask questions.
So you spent 6-7 years at Scottrade, until the writing on the wall came with that. You moved into a product management role for 2.5-3 years ish time, and then you moved into your consulting role right now. And you used a lot of chance or luck phrases in that. You said lucky, or I fell into, or accidental. But knowing you and your intentionality behind some things, I know that's not 100% true. So how throughout your career did you spot opportunities and evaluate opportunities and then act on those certain opportunities?
Yeah, I think, back to network, first of all, there are a lot of opportunities from showing people you care and showing people that you're consistent and that you'll show up. And I think I have had the opportunity to turn down a lot of things or not consider things and have multiple opportunities because of that, I think. And it's hard because for me, I over title or over money, I have tried to value at this point in my career growth and learning over everything.
Mm.
And so that has, and it just depends on what that is for you. Maybe it is money, like maybe it is a title, maybe it is managing people, maybe it is all these things. But for me, it was like, where can I feel like the dumbest person in the room? And luckily, there's a lot of really smart rooms with a lot of great organizations, and so yeah, I do feel lucky and I do feel fortunate. I think we can like look back and say, oh, I earned this. And like, look, I had this growth mindset transition. By the time I was ready for an internship, I thought I was going to go work for Procter and Gamble or like some like huge name company. Like I thought I was going to like take over the world. Like I was ready to like knock down walls and uh, but I feel lucky for the company I fell into and the mentor, like the people, like the department I fell in, the the culture that I was in, the people that I met, and I'm still having really great relationships with. Like I feel lucky for all that. I feel fortunate. I feel like I don't think I knew what I was signing up for or
Mm.
knew what that opportunity was, and then to come out of it, I think you make what you make of it when you get there. Um, but I do feel like some of that stuff is very very I don't know if lucky is the right word, whatever word you want to insert there, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's twofold.
Yeah.
You everything in life you have there's a lot of serendipity and there's a lot of things that happen. For me, like with this internship, I think I put in good work and they hired me right out of college and I was very comfortable and learned just so much. The same way that like I met Amber through a friend and decided to go visit her in Kansas City, and something I would have never done,
Mm.
And I think like we have these things, and it just depends on like what really catches our eye and what we're willing to work towards and fail at, and for me, it's like the career stuff. Like all of this is super meaningful to me. And with Amber, that was my person, and I was willing to like go out on a limb and do that. So
Mm.
it's hard for me to like. Long story long. I think that luck is an important part of things. It's just this life is we don't get to pick this thing.
Yeah.
We don't. It's not a choose your own adventure. Like it chooses you, and then you choose what to do with it.
Definitely. Kevin, if somebody resonated with you and wanted to connect further or ask you a follow-up question, what's the best avenue for them to do that?
Yeah. Feel free to contact me. Find me on Instagram at KMcWilliams21. And then feel free to shoot me an email at kevinp.mcwilliams21@gmail.com.
Sweet. Awesome. And we'll put those, if you're on YouTube, we'll put that in the show notes right below. If not, you can always reach out to me and I can share his contact information with you as well. So Kevin, it was a pleasure having a conversation with you. Is there anything else, final thoughts that you would like to share with the audience?
I think no matter what situation you're in, it can always be better. And I think we're in times that are really tough, especially right now. Know that we can always put the work in to make it a better situation, no matter what that thing is. Look for people, look for resources. There are people that are willing to help you. And I just want to say that I thought that this was going to be like a really chill podcast that you were just kind of like experimenting with, but there was a lot of details that were in a lot of this. And so I want to expose the fact that there was a lot of pre-work in some of this stuff from you and a lot of great organization, and I was really impressed by. But so I wanted to like kind of call you out for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Kevin. And I'm going to do the same back to you. I really appreciate in a time where I was really looking for some guidance and some mentorship above me. I felt like I really wanted to connect with a different group of people. By serendipity, I found you, and Eric and Wakil, and I just admire the fact that you guys brought me in as the younger brother, and that you put in the time and effort and share with me, some of the mistakes that you've made, some of the wisdoms that you've gained over the years, to help me make sure that I don't stumble down that path. And if I do stumble down that path, you're always there to have a conversation, to throw me a lifeline, to put a sports analogy into an easy frame of reference for me so that I understand. So once again, back at you, and I really appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Anytime.
Awesome. Well, have a great one. Thanks again for being on the Sandbox, and hopefully this isn't our last conversation.
Thanks, brother. Love you, man.
Kevin. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed that conversation with Kevin. Ever since I met him 4 years ago, he's been a huge role model in my life. But it was actually really surprising because I learned a ton about him during this interview. I really can't imagine high school Kevin with a fixed mindset. Ever since I've known Kevin, he's somebody that just protrudes all the characteristics of the growth mindset. So I was really surprised, but actually really glad and encouraged that he shared that story with me. My favorite part of the conversation was when he was talking about I am statements. And whatever follows I am is really what shapes reality for you. So I suggest to everybody out there, I challenge everybody out there to make sure that is something empowering and not something self-defeating. A few final thoughts before everybody goes, though. I have a few things going on. First, if you want to stay connected with me in between shows, you can follow me on Instagram at Justin Lee Peters. Lee is spelled L-E-E. Justin and Peters is phonetic. You'll figure it out. And if you're on YouTube right now, I'd love if you smash that subscribe button and turned on the bell. Likewise, for my people listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts right now, I'd appreciate if you give me a follow so you don't miss any of my future episodes. And finally, I've been working on a big blog series. It's all about networking, really making networking your competitive advantage. It's going to be a 6-part series as of right now, but I'm actually thinking about, with everything that's going on, including how to virtually network. But right now, the first 3 parts are out. That is part 1, the importance of networking. Part 2, mastering professional networking events. And we talk about navigating professional networking events and how to really maximize each one of the events that you attend. And then finally, the 3rd part was just released, how to be a better conversationalist, giving you tips and tricks on making conversation and leaving a lasting impression on the person that you're talking to. So if you're interested in that series, please go check it out. You can find the link on my link tree, which is linktr.ee/Justin Lee Peters. And once again, Lee is L-E-E. So with that, I hope everybody stays safe out there. I give a huge condolence to everybody who has lost their job or is having a small business right now and fighting to keep that alive. But this is a great time to connect with friends and family that you've lost touch with. I know most people can't talk to people face to face, but now with the age of technology that we're in right now, give somebody a phone call, jump on a Skype, have a Skype conversation, go out and make sure that you're connecting with people during this time. And of course, huge thank you to Kevin for being a guest on my show and giving so much of his time and knowledge to the audience here. Big shout out to Kyle, as always, for that intro music that you hear. And of course, my better half, Gabby Dymeke, for all the help with the production. It's been great having her around, and actually we've been around a ton. We're quarantining together right now, so super big thank you to her, as she's had to deal with me the last 7 days and probably another week here. So awesome. Have a great one, guys, and stay tuned for the next episode. So until next time, see you in the sandbox.